Saturday morning. Merci bien d'être ici. What I'm going to present you is, let's say, the first step of research I'm developing with two colleagues of mine. I'm working in the last 2 years with them. Tingting Zhang from the Western New England University. I always have trouble to remember the acronym. And Sinisa Habziabdic from Université de Geneva. Are we still who we are? Identity shift among federations and local unions over a merger. So as Melanie mentioned, identity at some point, our research is centrally about identity, and especially in this kind of institutional rearrangement of a merger of unions. Union merger has been a very important and interesting topic in industrial relations, widely discussed since the 70s, and still more recently we have contribution about it. The importance and the saliency of mergers is because it has been thought and considered as the one solution to counterweight union decline. There is this very nice citation from the 1979 that says the pattern of mergers gives some clues concerning the evolution of union power in society at large. Changes in the American labor movement are usually glacial in nature, but the trend of mergers may give already warning of prospective upheavals or subsidence. The idea was merger or perish for unions. Most of the literature has focused on three fundamental aspects of the merger. How do unions merge? This literature focuses mostly on the event. Are the members going to vote? Is a union that is really no longer financially able to be self-sufficient, so is asking to another union to take over? Or it is a plan of merging that has been defined 6 months before, a year before, and the two unions work together for a long time. It's a merging of 1 to 1, it's a merge of 3 unions, etc., etc. There is a lot of attention, why do unions merge? And this is mainly, they say that there are many advantages. Most of them, first and foremost, you have a bigger financial pool. So you can provide many more services to the members. Members are more happy. So let's have bigger unions with much more resources, and they can really satisfy the members. Members are more happy then. There is also the idea that if we have a very few militant members in a union, and we are a small union, if we merge together to small unions, we have a bigger pool of militant unions, very active. So we have a gain in terms of activism, and we have probably gain also in terms of visibility toward government and other public institutions, let alone toward employers. The third stream of literature focuses on how the merging affects the members, the officer, how the officers are splitting the task in the new union, how the staff is reacting, what are the different point of view of the staff before and after the merging, and how these affect union and institution and union toward the society. Are union getting power back due to mergers? It's a very interesting literature stream that really received a lot of contribution throughout time. The only issue of this stream is that merger is mostly seen as an event. We have a very short longitudinal analysis of the merging process. Generally, we look at the 6 months before the merging, what the staff decide, what the leadership of the 2 or 3 unions decided, how did it happen. We don't have a long longitudinal perspective of 10 years. So in a way that we are able to say before was like this, then we have an in-between moment, we have the merging process, and after what is like this. So we can see a long process that is before the merging, during the merging, and after the merging. We are drawing also on another stream of literature that is mainly about strategy and organizational behavior. This stream of literature has an extensive focus on mergers and acquisitions, especially how multinational companies are taking over local companies and how these affect the organization. The very interesting focus of this stream of literature is that they are really studying the relationship at two different scales, the organization and the individual. The individual worker nested into a new organization, and the leadership, the old leadership nested into the new organization. So the two different levels, two different scales. The main attention given in the stream of literature about mergers in company and in big companies especially is about the struggle around the identity and how old identities they have to change toward a new identity and how this new identity is defined. So all the efforts involved in forming, repairing, maintaining, strengthening, or revising the construction of self as an individual, as a worker, and as a company, that productive of a sense of coherence and distinctiveness. How can we define this new identity? How can we be different from the rest, and how can be unique and something cohesive? All of this is basically drawing upon the sense-making and sense-giving debate. So how the different people, how different workers are participating to the sense-making, how are they making sense of the new identity, organizational identity? What are people doing? What are they communicating? What are, in all this universe and pastiche of communication, what are the most important meanings that are emerging throughout times? And how are leaders especially trying to influence this process through the sense-giving process? I mean, they are giving sense to a specific organizational dynamic that is the merging. There is a very strong attention to effective communications. So how leaders, they can really shape the new identity, how they can push some meaning ahead and avoid uncertainty about what is the new identity of the new organization toward the employer, toward the employees, toward the workers, toward the management, as well as toward the public, toward the consumers, for example, in a big company. Clearly, what there is apprehension and uncertainty can have negative impact on employee behavior and morale. The issue in this stream of literature that is very interesting on the theoretical aspect, but is very difficult sometimes to study this process, this identity construction, on a long period. Generally, we have a very interesting and very deep studies, but they're focused on few exchange, few conversation on a specific moment in time. Maybe 10, 12 meetings of leadership of the two companies, something like this. So our case is the merging of Canadian automobile workers with the CEP, the Communication and Energy of Paperwork Union of Canada, that emerged into Unifor. This happened in May 2013, so the merging event took place in May 2013, and let's say more than a year previous to this event, they start to announce the intention of the merging, they work toward the merging, to then arrive to have a national convention of the first new, is the biggest Canadian union in private sector. So our research questions are about the identity, how identity changed before, during, and after a merger. And what we want to explore are these two different levels. If the organizational behavior literature, they study individual employees nested into an organization during a merger, we study locals union nested into a specific union during a merger. What we use is a topic modeling. Typically, we take a lot of documents Then there is a process, we code 20% of these according to some topics that we define. And then there is an automated process that recognizes the words and then links words back to the topics that we feed into the system. Our documents are tweets. We collected 10 years of tweets of communication from Canadian automobile workers, CEP, and Unifor. And we did this at national level as well as for 3 local unions on the CAW side and CEP side. So basically, we are analyzing around 15,000 tweets. Tweets are very interesting because at the same time, they try to define the identity for the members, as well as Twitter is very important for external communication, to tell to the population at large who is uniform, who is the new union, what is the identity of the new union. So if we look at the top, you have Canadian automobile workers before the merging. You have the timeline. So the very important topics merging, so the size is the saliency of these, and if it is colored and is a solid, it means that it is very important in the debate. So for Canadian automobile workers, previous to the merger, their identity was based on, we are the automobile workers, we fight a lot, we are the workers of action, we are the union of action, and we are a union that wants to have a very strong political impact on the society. Whereas the CEP, they had a little bit of identity discussion, so who we are before the merging, but not that much as Canadian automobile workers. They had some political discussion, but much less than Canadian automobile workers. Toward the merging, we see that the new, most important topic that comes in is the new union. What is the new union? A new union is coming, a new union is being formed. We are going toward the new union, we are going to change. Uniform takes over. There is a new union. Here we have a gigantic identity definition by uniform that is different from the 2 previous ones. Afterwards, we see mostly, and this is the uniform account from now on, much less political discussion and labor action, and much more discussion, wider political discussion on wider issues, as well as wider social topics, and trying to do coalition and interaction with other social organizations, civil society organizations than just unions. If we look at local level, so on the top you have the Canadian automobile workers local, on the bottom you have the CEP. You see that mostly there are some topics that are strictly relating to specific events like collective bargaining and labor action linked to a collective bargaining. CAW, there was a local level, some echoes of the political discussion at national level. And now you can see that there is the new union that is discussed by the CEP locals, and there is a kind of national identity that is coming into play for the Canadian automobile workers. What you can see that there is, from the merging point onward, there is a kind of a resilience of the local identity for the CAP, even if it's not that big, as well as throughout time we see something very interesting, that is the persistency of local identity for CAP, but at the same time a kind of vertical integration on Twitter, how locals, they're more and more retweeting and being clearly nested into the discussion by national unions, by Unifor. So they are more and more retweeting the political discussion that is broadcasted by national unions. So what are some concluding remarks of this first step of our research? We saw a lot of identity work to create a new identity at the national level by Unifor during the merge. At the local level, the reaction to this identity depends on members are relating to old identity. There were some locals that were much more strongly relating to identity of the CEP, for example, rather than CAW. We see throughout time a much more controlled and coordinated communication at the local level. So we see that in these new unions, so uniform coming out from this merging, is trying as much as possible to become much more cohesive also with the local level, to try to be much more stronger and unique within and outside toward the public. Is this a way to counterweight the union decentralization typical of the Canadian bargaining system? Is this a way to establish a self-sufficient union? Uniform is no longer in the Canadian Labour Congress. Those are questions that we are going to explore in the second step through especially in-depth interviews with the key leaders of the merger process on the Canadian automobile workers as well as the CEP. I guess I'm on time. Thank you very much for your attention.